Hey everyone, I'm Joe and today I'm doing my January book haul part 1. I'll link part 2 in the description box below. This is the award winning section, which directly relates to last week's video, which I'll link in the description box below as well, which is basically a new monthly series that I'm starting, which basically involves me reading award winning books within 5 different awards. Now there are 13 books in total in this video. 11 of them have won awards. One of them didn't win the main award, but it did get an honourable mention and won one for the editor, and the other final book didn't win an award itself, but the author did win an award only a few years before that. So they all are award-winning authors. Before I get onto the books, I just want to say that I don't know too much about any of the books overall, so I'll probably be reading the descriptions and then adding the few things I do know about the books, because a few of them I do actually know a little bit more about, but most of them not really. So the first book I'm going to show you is The Star's My Destination by Alfred. Now this is the one book that didn't win an award itself. However, 2 years before the release of this book in 1953, Alfred won an award with The Demolished Man, and that was a Hugo Award. This one sounds an interesting one as well, which I'll quickly read the back of. Education, none. Skills, none. Merits, none. Recommendations, none. That's sounding too good for That is the official verdict on Gully Foyle, unskilled space crewman. But Gully has managed to survive for 170 days in the airless purgatory of deep space after the wreck of his ship, and now he has escaped to Earth carrying a murderous grudge and a secret that could change the course of history. Now, the few things I know about this book is that the main character is frankly unpleasant and fairly unlikable, and it is considered fairly psychedelic and quite sort of traditional, weird, classic science fiction fan club, whatever that means. So this does sound an interesting one, and the book that I read by Bester before, which is Demolished Man, I did quite enjoy. So this could be an interesting one. It could be a disaster. I'll find out. The second book is Double Star by Robert A. Heinlein. This won the Hugo Award in 1956. Now the only thing I know about this is, as the picture may vaguely give you a slight clue to, it is about a guy who is forced to pretend to be another person, in this case a politician, and if he does it well, however, he may end up being forced to do this role for the rest of his life, pretending to be a completely different person, indeed looking completely different, and if he does it badly, then he could be responsible for starting a interstellar war and basically being responsible for genocide. So this guy is not in a good position. It sounds like it's obviously a military science fiction slightly, with sort of political overtones, and Heinlein is obviously exploring how war works and what it means to the greater society. So it could be a very interesting one, and I've heard very good things about this. The third book is Starship Troopers, also by Robert A. Heinlein. This won the Hugo Award in 1960. Now they made a film of this in the mid to late 90s, I believe it was, which was one of these films where it's so bad that you actually kind of like it, or at least I do, because it's just over the top and sort of really campy but really good as a result. It is quite simply set in the far future, where humanity has come across this other alien species, which is essentially giant insects. We have gone to war with these giant insects for reasons that frankly I don't personally know, but presumably it's just because they are aggressive, or at least we certainly are. And the point of view of the book is based around one soldier, particularly called John Rico, or Johnny Rico, hence the film as well, because he's got the same character name in that. And it follows him from his beginnings to what he becomes later in the book. So I'm very curious to see what this is like in comparison to the film, because the film was interesting and I did quite enjoy the film. So whether this is anything like that, I don't know. It could be completely different and only have basically the names in common. So we'll find out soon enough. Next up is Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. This won the Hugo Award in 1968. Now I know very little about this, other than it deals with theology and science fiction, which is obviously a very traditional subject for science fiction to deal with. It tries to use technology and futuristic environments to explore what is theology and what it means. I'll quickly read the back of the book. A distant world where gods walk as men, but wield vast and hidden powers. Are they truly immortal? Who are these gods who rule the destiny of a teeming world? Their names include Brahma, Kali, Krishna, and also he who is called Buddha, the Lord of Light, but who now prefers to be known simply as Sam. Okay, that's unusual. How has the colonization of another planet become a reenactment of Eastern religion and mythology? Yeah, that sounds exactly like what I remember hearing about years ago. So it's dealing with theology and religion and using the science fiction setting to sort of explore it in probably quite interesting and unusual ways. So this sounds an interesting one. The fifth book is A Case of Conscience by James Blish. This won the Hugo Award in 1959. Now, I know nothing about this particularly, other than it is to do with theology again and exploring it in unusual ways. I'll quickly read the back. Father Ramon Ruiz Sanchez S.J. is part of a 4-man scientific commission to the planet Lithia, there to study a harmonious society of aliens living on a planet which is a biologist's paradise. He soon finds himself troubled. How can these perfect beings, living in an apparent Eden, have no conception of sin or God? If such a sinless Eden has been created apart from God, then who is responsible? So yeah, this is questioning the idea of is there a God, could there be one, and just the whole subject. So this is quite an interesting one by the sound of it, and one that is very traditional science fiction, but again, a good solid book, I suspect. Next up is Dangerous Visions, edited by Harlan Ellison. Now this didn't win the main award itself, however during the 1968 UA Awards it did win a special award for the editor, that being obviously Harlan Ellison. All I know about this is that it is a really well thought of and really interesting collection of short stories by quite a lot of well-known classic science fiction authors. They are all in this collection because they are all a bit more edgy or a bit more out there, which essentially means that they are stories that deal with subjects that for the time they were written in were ones that were a bit more difficult to talk about, and frankly they weren't mainstream subjects, but Ellison has included them in this, and I'll just quickly read out the list of some of the authors, which include Robert Silverberg, Frederick Pohl, Brian W. Aldiss, Philip K. Dick, Larry Niven, Franz Lieber, Paul Anderson, Theodore Sturgeon, J.G. Ballard, Samuel R. Delany, and Ellison himself. I've read all of those authors other than Franz Lieber, and I will be reading one of his books this year. So it's a big list of very familiar and very classic science fiction authors, and an interesting mix of short stories dealing with a variety of unusual subjects, at least for the time they were written in. The seventh book is Slow River by Nicola Griffith. This won the Nebula Award in 1997. Now I know very little about the plot of this book, however the thing that matters to me significantly is two people that I trust, namely Rachel and Catherine, both read this and really liked it and rated it quite highly, so I've been quite eager to read it since then. I will quickly read the back of the book. She awoke in an alley to a splash of rain. She was naked, a foot-long gash in her back was still bleeding, and her identity implant was gone. Laura Van Ersteling had been the daughter of one of the world's most powerful families, and now she was nobody. Now she had to hide. Then out of the rain walked Spanner, Predator and Phoebe, who took her in, cared for her wound, and taught her to reinvent herself. And now Laura worked for her. The plot of it sounds perfectly good. One thing I do know about Nicola Griffith is that she explores gender and sexuality and tries to break down barriers. So this is one that sounds really interesting and I'm quite eager to get to. And indeed I will be reading another well-known book by Nicola Griffith, namely Ammonite, in this coming month in February. So I will know what she's like soon enough. The eighth book is China Mountain Zhang by Maureen F. McHugh. This won the James Tiptree Jr. Award in 1992. Now I know very little about this book at all. I don't know very many people who have read it, so I'll just read the back of the book. After the Second Great Depression and the American Liberation War, the US has been left as a satellite state of China. In this strict world of communist orthodoxy, young New York construction engineer Zhang Zongshan must find his way in a world that disapproves of both his cultural heritage and his sexual identity. Not everyone can change the world. Sometimes the ultimate challenge is to find a way to live in it. So this vaguely makes me think of the previous book by Griffith. It explores gender and sexuality again, and I know it is quite highly rated as a science fiction book, so again, it's another one that I'm very eager to get to. The next book is not just one book, but it's actually 4 books, part of a series, and indeed is one of the few series that have won so many awards, frankly, within science fiction and fantasy, and that would be, first of all, Doomsday Book, then To Say Nothing of the Dog, then Blackout, and finally, All Clear, all by Connie Willis. Now these 4 books, between them, have won 4 Hugo Awards, all 4 of them have, and 3 Nebula Awards. The only one that didn't win a Nebula was To Say Nothing of the Dog. So this is an extremely highly decorated series. It is part of the Oxford Time Travellers series. I read the first sort of short story set in this world last year in another collection by Willis, and I quite enjoyed it. So these are the first full-length books I will have read by Willis, and they do sound quite interesting. I know it deals with time travel, and it's a group of people, scientists and such, that go back and try to explore time and history, and I think they explore as well, Willis does, the idea of time paradoxes and such in both traditional manners and untraditional ones. So this should be an interesting series to get around to, which I will get around to them this year, and they're pretty big overall though. And also, these 2 books, Blackout and All Clear, are considered the same book. It's basically part 1 and part 2 of the same book, so they actually won awards together because they are together, the same book, basically splitting off. And finally, the last book is Dreamsnake by Vonda and McIntyre. This won the 1979 Hugo and Nebula Award. Now this sounds quite curious because going by the back of the book, this sounds like it's a science fiction book which has a significant feel of fantasy when you actually read it, which isn't unusual for certain science fiction admittedly, because obviously Dune does that and various other significant books, but it's not a common thing, so this should be an interesting one to get to, and I'll quickly read the back of the book. Snake travels the land with her serpents, the rattlesnake sand, the cobra mist, and the rare alien dream snake called Grass, whose bite can ease the fear and pain of death. But the blasted landscape of a far future post-Holocaust Earth is a dangerous place, even for such a highly regarded elite healer, especially when an unexpected death sends her on a desperate quest to reclaim her healing powers. Yeah, this sounds like a science fiction setting, obviously being post-apocalyptic, but the way the characters are named the way they are, and this sort of journey they make across this landscape sounds almost fantasy in some ways. So this should be an interesting one, and I know it's rated quite highly, so yet again, another one that I'm quite eager to get to. So that's it for the new books. If you've read any of these or would like to, then please leave a comment and we can have a conversation. All my social media links, as well as the various things I mentioned at the start of the video, can be found in the description box below, as they always are. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.